Hello everyone, this is Charlie from the Bloomingdale Public Library, and today we're going to be discussing Cricut Design Space, the application for using Cricut products. Now this application has a bunch of different uses for a bunch of different products, so to keep this video focused, we're going to look specifically at using the application to create designs to later be cut with a Cricut Maker or Cricut Maker 3 machine, both of which we have available in our Makerspace. So you will not need a Cricut product to do anything we discussed today. The idea is you'll be able to download the program and create your own designs at home or wherever, and then come into the BPL Makerspace where you can log into your account, access your designs, and have staff help you the rest of the way. If you wanted to learn more about our Makerspace, you can do so at mybpl.org/makerspace. So what exactly is Cricut Design Space? Well, first off, it's a free, cloud-based application that you use to create designs to then be cut or print with a Cricut product. So if you don't know what cloud-based means, it basically means you're working over the internet. And if you're like me, you probably think of cloud-based applications as typically things that run in the browser. So something like Canva or Tinkercad, or even working with email. And I guess that used to be the case with Design Space, but now you need a standalone app. I've seen this app available for most major platforms, and by that I mean you can go to their website and get the installer for Windows or Mac. And I've also seen it available on the Google Play and Apple App Stores as well. It might be on the Microsoft Store, I'm not sure, because I actively avoid using it. Where you will not be able to use Cricut Design Space is Chromebooks and Linux machines, but I bet that changes with time. Cricut Design Space is not a drawing program, and by that I mean you can work with shapes, text, and any images you import, but there's no explicit drawing tool. About the closest you'll come is importing a rectangle and then carving it up with an eraser tool, but at that point you're probably better off just using another drawing program and importing from there. Cricut Design Space is pretty much necessary to do anything productive with a Cricut machine. So you're going to wind up downloading the application to a device and then connecting the device to the Cricut machine by Bluetooth or a cable. And then once you do that, you'll be able to use your device to do setups, registration, send your jobs, things like that. Because the application is cloud-based, you are going to need an internet connection and then to sign into an account. However, once you sign in, you can then disconnect from the internet and work offline for a period of time before you get kicked off and gotta log back in. And I'm guessing that's probably about 30 days. This last point here is kind of a big one. While your standard account is free, so when you go to make your account initially, you're going to start off with a standard account. But once you have that account and you get to the home screen, you're going to see a stupefying number of reminders that there's also a subscription service called Cricut Access. I kind of don't like calling applications like this free, since it's basically just a vehicle for doing a lot of marketing and ultimately collecting data on you. But I guess it still counts, and you'll be able to do most of what you need to do without paying any money. So if you were to get a Cricut Access account, what that would do is give you more access to fonts, graphics, projects, and other things that otherwise have a price attached to them. So basically, once you get into Cricut Design Space, you can go searching for all sorts of things, and most of the results you're going to see are going to have a Cricut Access icon next to it, meaning you need to have Cricut Access to use it. Otherwise, there'll be a price attached to it, which might range from 99 cents to something more like $6. So if you're like me and you stick with a standard account, you might want to filter your results by what is free. And even when you do that, you're going to get some Cricut Access only results. And I kind of think that's false advertising. However, you can get access to a free trial for 30 days. So maybe not quite false advertising, but still, generally when you're looking for free results, you're looking because you don't have a Cricut Access account. One other thing you can do with Cricut Design Space is order actual physical materials and resources to use with your Cricut machines. And if you had a Cricut Access account, you would be able to get discounts, something like 10% maybe, or maybe there'll also be sales that you'll have access to that you wouldn't otherwise if you just had a standard account. So, while Cricut Design Space is designed to work with about a half dozen of the Cricut products, and what we discussed today should apply to all of them, I'm mostly making this video to help promote our Cricut Maker and Cricut Maker 3 located in our Makerspace. If you didn't know what a Cricut Maker is, it's basically a machine that works like a printer that can either draw or cut designs onto various materials like paper, vinyl, fabric, and a whole bunch of others. I've included a little picture here of a Cricut Maker, and as you can see, it looks just like a printer and functions like one too. If you needed to see examples of what you can do with a Cricut Maker, there's probably thousands on the Cricut Design Space home screen. Otherwise, you can take a tour of the library, and you'll notice all over the walls we have vinyl designs that are pretty much switched out seasonally, and they're created by our librarians using a cutting machine like the Cricut Maker. Also, there's another machine called a Silhouette, and I might do a video on the Silhouette Studio later. It's basically the same thing, just a different brand. If you'd like to learn more about the Cricut Maker machines, you can go to the official webpage, which is at cricut.com/en-us/cricut-maker, or you can go to our webpage too, which is at mybpl.org/Cricut. You can also come on in for a tour or demonstration or a one-on-one in the library. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started installing Cricut Design Space. So what you want to do is open up a browser. We'll go with Chrome. And we're going to go to design.cricut.com. That should take you to this page. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this for now. So go ahead and read the terms of use, privacy policy. You do need to agree to those with the little click on the checkbox here. In order to download the installer, click that. And depending on what browser you're using, it'll pop up in a corner somewhere. I'm not going to wait for that right now. I'm going to go directly to our downloads folder where I've already downloaded it. Just double click it, and as you do, it will do a quick little install and then bring you up to the intro screen, which I've already got it installed, so I'm not going to go through that. It would just be a waste of time. But it will bring you up to the intro screen. It'll also tell you the version number, and Cricut does update its version pretty regularly. So after you're done installing, you should wind up on this screen. And like I said, we're going to focus just on the design software, and we're not going to worry about products or anything like that. So from here, you would click Sign In, create Cricut ID. Go ahead, you need an email, an address, first name, last name, and a country. And once again, you need to agree to terms of use and privacy policy, and it's up to you if you want to see the advertisements or not. But once you're all good, go ahead and click Create Cricut ID at the bottom, and you will wind up at the home screen. I'm going to go ahead and sign in and take us there, and we'll have a look at that next. Once you're signed in, you should be looking at a screen like this. This is the home screen. If your screen doesn't look like this, there's probably a pop-up ad blocking it. Just go ahead and click the X in the upper right-hand corner, and there you go. You're going to see another strip of ads scrolling along the top here, and even down below where the projects are listed, you're going to see more ads mixed in. There is no shortage of ads in Cricut Design Space. So doing a quick overview, at the very top here, we have the File menu option, which is where you can quit. Under View is where you can toggle full screen or reload the screen if things freeze up. Under Help, the Help menu item will take you to the Help pages, and the videos will actually take you to their YouTube homepage. Below that, we've got these three bars that stand for another menu. If you click on that, the top option is to view your profile page. That's where you can go to add a picture, and you can see all the projects that you have shared as well. I'm going to skip that for now. The home option will take you back to the screen here. Canvas is the screen where we can actually do our designing. We'll have a look at that shortly. Then we have a whole bunch of other menu items here. Some will require you to connect to a machine to look at various options. Others will take you to web pages, depending on what you click on. One that might be worth looking at is the settings, so we'll click on that. And here's where you can change the language, change the saving offline if you plan to do offline work. And you can also change the grid, the units if you prefer metric. And under notifications, if you want to try to get rid of some of the ads and notifications, this is where you can do that. So below that, we have a search bar. If you wanted to focus your homepage results, you can go ahead and do a search for something, say something like cars. You'll get images, projects, and fonts related to cars. I'm going to click the back arrow. You can also just scroll down and see what there is to see. Everything is categorized. Again, you've got ads, videos, and projects. Anything that requires Cricut Access should have an A at the top, but in my experience, even the ones that don't might be using assets that require Cricut Access. I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these projects here. When you do that, you can flick through some of the images there. We've got the ability to share, like, bookmark, or flag if you want to report it. I'm going to go ahead and bookmark this guy for later so we can have a look at what that does. If I scroll down, you see there's an option to print the directions. There's a button to go to the store and shop for the materials used. And down below, they actually show which assets they use, and you can see a whole bunch of these have little A's next to them, meaning that you need Cricut Access or you have to pay for them. So down here it says requires Cricut Access subscription. So even though we didn't have the little A icon, it still requires a subscription, which that kind of stinks. If you click Edit a Copy, it'll bring it to the canvas where you can do things to it. If you click Make It, you'll go straight into printing or cutting, and that is when you'll actually be charged. So you might discover when you go and bring something to your canvas and you get everything edited and you go to cut it, that you have something in there that actually requires a Cricut Access account or it has a fee attached to it. So that's kind of annoying. You won't know if there's a fee attached to your project until you go to print, and I've seen that happen with a couple people. So something to be aware of. So again, you can float through all there is to see here. And that's all other people's things that you can go ahead and borrow or purchase or what have you. But beneath that is my stuff. And if I click on that, I'll see any projects that I have. This is a little Mortal Kombat symbol. That was my first printout. If you click on bookmarked, you'll see anything you bookmarked. And sure enough, we have our hat there. You have the ability to group everything together in various folders called collections. So if you go over here, click the plus sign, you can create a new collection. And once you do that, you go back to the projects, click on the three dots, add to collection, and then pick what folders you want to add it to. Now if I go to the new collection, you'll see the little Mortal Kombat symbol there. Just to look at a few more things on the home screen here, if you click on the three dots in the upper right-hand corner of your project, you see a couple of options you have available, including saving for offline use and deleting the project. Click on the X to go back. Click on the picture to get a nice little page similar to what we saw in the Discover section. I didn't do any of this. This is all automatically generated. But if you wanted to continue working on your project, you'd click Customize. And if you wanted to go print or cut it, you'd click Make It. X out of that. And I'm going to go back to the Discover section. Underneath Discover and My Stuff, we've got Heat Guide, Cricut Learn, and Shop. All three of these are links to the Cricut website. And the Heat Guide will discuss instructions for using the heat transfer products and materials. We actually do have a couple of those in our Makerspace, but they're beyond the scope of this course. Cricut Learn will take you to a part of the website where there's videos that are organized into course form, similar to LinkedIn Learning if you've used that. And if you haven't, you have access to it through our website with a Bloomingdale library card. And then Shop is where you would go to their website and order actual physical materials and resources. And all three of those will require you to log in to the website, even though you're already logged in to Cricut Design Space, which is a little weird, but it is part of the deal. So up at the top here, again, we have access to My Stuff. If you click on that, this little bell here is for notifications. We looked at all the different notifications that you might get when we looked at the settings. Here where it says Explore, that is actually a product name. So if you click on that, you'll see the different products that you can use Cricut Design Space for. Like I said, with us, you'll be using either the Cricut Maker or Cricut Maker 3. I don't think it changes anything really until you go to actually make your project. So on the actual canvas, I think everything pretty much runs the same. And up at the top here is New Project. And when you do that, it will take you to the canvas with a blank workspace. So let's go ahead and click on New Project. And here we are at the canvas screen. We'll take a look at everything we've got here next. So here we are on the canvas screen. First thing I want to look at, it's not very intuitive. If you know the color of the material you're going to be using, it could be helpful to come over here, click on this rectangle where it says blank canvas on the right side. You're going to get a new bar at the top with a little square for color. You click on that and you can choose a new background color. If you want a custom color, click Advanced, and there you go. For today, I'm going to stick with white. And now we're going to have a look on the left side here. The first option is for a new canvas. If you click on that, you get a new canvas. If I actually had something here, you'd get a warning message to either cancel, save, or replace what's there. You can't have more than one canvas open at a time. Below that is templates. If you click on that, you see a whole bunch of different templates you can use. I'm going to choose book covers. And all this does is provide guides to help you work on your design. So you're going to see lines, but these lines do not represent cuts. Like the message says at the top there, it's just for reference. Depending on which template you use, you're going to have different options available. For here, we have textbooks and spiral notebooks. So if I choose spiral notebooks, we get a different template. Below that is projects. That works kind of like the home screen, except now we have a drop down with category selections and we can filter our selections with it, including this option free here. So that'll return free results. However, some of these free results still require Cricut access to use them, which I think kind of defeats the purpose of that filter. Furthermore, you can search by subject here. So if I look for free projects about cars, I don't get anything. Good to know. Below that is shapes. If I click on that, you see some free shapes at the top and a whole bunch more premium shapes below that. And there's even a search function to go further for that. We'll have a look at shapes a little bit later. Below that is images. Once again, we have an option to filter results by categories and by subject. So if I click on free here and search for cars, you see we actually do have a couple free results about cars, but these are just images, not full projects. There's more filters on the left here. I'll let you filter through those on your own. Below that is text. If you click on text, you're going to get a text box with the word text in it. Start typing if you wanted some new words in there. And there you go. We'll look at that a little bit more later as well. Below that is phrases. I'm not sure why this is its own thing. It just seems like a project list about phrases. Below that is editable images. Again, same kind of deal. The big deal with editable images, though, I guess, is that all of these have words that you could actually replace with your own. Below that is upload, another big one that we'll look at later. And last but not least is monogram. So this is a nice little tool for creating monograms. However, it is Cricut access only. So I'm going to skip that for now. Okay, so let's add some shapes to the canvas. Before I do that, I'd like to zoom in a little bit so our template takes up a bit more of the space. To do that, all you gotta do is roll over the zoom option in the lower left corner. It's kind of hard to see until you roll over it. When you do, you can just click on the plus and minus buttons to zoom in or zoom out. To center the canvas, you can use the scroll bars at the bottom and on the right. You can also click and drag with the middle mouse button if that's easier. All right, so let's go ahead and add some shapes. I'm going to click on shapes, click on the triangle, and we have added a triangle to the canvas. To move the triangle around, all we got to do is click and drag on it, just like so. If we wanted to change the height or width of the shape, all we got to do is roll the cursor over the sides until the cursor changes to an up and down or left and right double-sided arrow. Then click and drag, and that's how you would change the height or width of a shape. If you wanted to change both at the same time, just roll over one of the corner handles until the cursor changes to a diagonal double-sided arrow. Then click and drag. Do that, the height and width ratio is retained. If you wanted to be able to change those independently, what you do is go to the little size box up at the top, click on the lock. Now you see it's unlocked. And now we can change the height and width independently. Click on the lock to lock the ratio again. If you wanted to rotate the shape, one of the corner handles until it changes into a bent double-sided arrow, click and drag. Some other options we have at the top. You'll notice we've got the undo and redo arrows. Those are self-explanatory. Clicking this little box next to the cut. And there you go. You've changed the material color. Just to jump around a little bit, we've got the edit option here. These should all look familiar. Cut, copy, paste, duplicate, and delete. Duplicate is basically copy and paste at the same time. So if I click duplicate, you see it creates a copy and pastes it onto the canvas. I'm going to delete that, select our triangle. A few other options here. We've got the flip. We can flip horizontally or vertically. And we can also create an offset for the cut. So I'm not that craft savvy, but I would imagine that'd be useful if you needed a little extra room to create a seam or something like that. And you see as I move the cut around here, we have this new line that surrounds the triangle. You can change it to a straight or a rounded offset. You can also set it manually if you like. There you go. I'm going to cancel that. And those are some things we can do with a single shape. So now let's see what we can do with multiple shapes. I'm going to go ahead and add a square, like that, and I will add a circle, like that. And I'm going to give them all unique color just because it's easier to see that way. And now to select multiple shapes, there's a couple of things we can do. We can either just click and drag a rectangle around everything, just like that. Or we can select one shape at a time by holding down the Shift key and clicking on the shapes, like that. So with Cricut Design Space, Shift and Control basically act the same. So once everything is selected, you can go ahead and treat them like a single shape. So if I were to click and drag on a corner handle here like this, you see I can resize them all at once. I can also move them, and I can rotate them, just like that. I'm going to undo all that and select them all again. Deselecting does not work the way you would think. If I hold down Shift or Control and click on a shape in the canvas, it doesn't do anything. Instead, at least the way I found to do it, is to use the layers window on the right side here. So now if I hold down Control or Shift and click on a shape, it's deselected. At the same time, you can select shapes the same way with the layers window. We'll talk a little bit more about the layers window in a bit. A couple other things we can do with multiple shapes selected. If we go up to our top command bar here, there's some options we didn't have when we had just a single shape. And one of those things we can do is align. So if I click on the align command, we have a whole bunch of options here. Let's say we wanted to align left. It will push all the shapes over to the leftmost bounds of the selection, which in this case is going to line up with the square. So if I click align left, everything lines up with the square on the left side. I'll undo that. You can also center things. So I'll go ahead and select everything again. This time I'm going to align center horizontally. And it finds the middle of the horizontal selection and puts all the shapes there. I'm going to undo that. And now I'm going to stack the shapes up a little bit. And everything that goes on the canvas has a spot, and I've heard it called a lot of things. Z stack is something I've heard a lot. Basically, every shape is on top of or below another. And you can see what that order is on the layers window over here. Up on the top right commands spot here, you see we have the arrange command, and that is how we can change the order in the stack that an object sits. So if I click on arrange, you see I can send the circle backward, and as I do, it goes behind the square, but still ahead of the triangle. Send it back again, and now it is all the way in the back. At the same time, you can bring it forward as well, and you can also jump to the back or the front, skipping a couple steps. So that is a couple things you can do with multiple shapes. We'll cover a few more things when we go over layers in just a bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and add some text to our design. To do that, we just click on the text option on the left side. And when you do that, you get a text box with the word text in there. To replace that, you just start typing. There we go. When you're all done typing, click outside the box. And you'll notice we get handles around our text box. If you wanted to start editing the text again, you just double click. And there you go. Again, click outside when you're done. So I'm going to go ahead and give our text its own color here. It's a little easier to see. There we go. And text basically is controlled just like shapes with a little bit of difference. So again, you can click and drag on the text to move it around. You can click and drag on the side handles to adjust the size of the text box. And depending on the size of the text box, you might get overflow or word wrapping. So if you actually wanted to change the size of the font, what you would do is click and drag on one of the corner handles, and you can see that will change the size of the text box as well as the font. You'll also notice that the height-width ratio is being maintained. If that's not something you want, you just go up to the size box here, click on the lock, and now the ratio is unlocked, and you can even go upside down and backwards. We'll stretch it out nice and tall. So you'll notice we have another command bar here with the text selected, so let's have a look at that. If we click on the drop-down menu for font, you'll be greeted with a whole bunch of premium fonts and Cricut Access only fonts as well. If that's not something you're interested in, we've got this little symbol on the right side here to filter our results. Just click on the free box. And we lose about 95% of our options, but what are you going to do? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. One of our options is we can go up to the top here. We have a couple tabs. If you click on System, you will have access to any of the fonts installed on your computer. And if you weren't aware, there is a whole bunch of websites dedicated to free fonts. So you can go to those websites and get some more fonts to use. Just be aware that a lot of those fonts will have licensing attached to them where you can use them for free but not sell anything with them. So besides our font options, the rest of these should look kind of familiar. We've got some styling, so we can go from regular to italicized. Be aware not every single font has every single option. You can change the size of the font up here as well. The spacing between the letters if you needed to take up some space. Line spacing, so this will be if your text has multiple lines. You can add some space vertically. You can see the text moving up and down there. Alignment, that's if you wanted everything left or right justified, aligned to the top or bottom, and if you wanted word wrap on or off. So if you wanted everything to the right, there you go, or the left. So there's also an option to curve. I believe it has to be just one line in order for that option to be available. So let's see if we can get that. We need to shrink things down a little bit, I think. There we go. So with the single line, we can do the curve option. If I click on that, we can go left and right. And that will basically just change the size of the circle that the text sits on, curving it up or down. And advanced will make each letter its own text box. And there's reasons you might want to do that. There's also an option to wrap text up at the top here. Kind of looks like word art from the Office suite, but that is a premium option only. Okay, so we've worked with text, we've worked with shapes. Now it's time to upload some images. To do that, we go to the Uploads option, give a click, and that will take us to a list of images that we've already uploaded. Ideally, these are the kind of images that you're looking to use. They're not so much images as they are shapes. So it's basically two colors, one color that you want to keep and one color that you want to cut away. If your image has anything more than two colors, then you're going to have to make some decisions about which colors stay and which colors go. And one way or the other, you're going to be losing detail. Nonetheless, you are certainly able to work with images of multiple colors, and we're going to do that right now. I'm going to click Upload Image. Here's where you can drag and drop something from your computer. Otherwise, you can go browsing, which is what I'm going to do. And you see I have two images. One is car good and one is car less good. We'll look at the good one first. So I consider this a good one because it has relatively few colors. There's no color gradients. It's a simple image that we should be able to turn into a pretty good shape. So once you upload your image, you have a couple of options to describe your image. Again, I would call this one simple, but if you were taking like a real life photograph, something with gradients or smoke or motion blur, that's where you would choose complex, and that's still going to be pretty hard to turn into a decent shape. So I'm going to go ahead and choose simple. You might have been able to tell that they simplified the colors a little bit, but not too bad. We'll click continue. And on this screen, we're going to basically cut away our shape from this rectangle. If I just do apply and continue, again, you see we have a rectangle. We have to actually cut our shape out. So we'll go back. And like I was saying before, if you wanted to actually try to draw in Cricut Design Space, this is where you could take the eraser and just go crazy and make a design that way, but that's really not practical. So we have a few tools to work with. The first one is like a magic wand, which will get rid of patches of color. The erase tool, which will erase away whatever we erase. And the restore tool, which is just in case we erase too much, we can wipe back over it and it will put things back. There's also an undo and redo button up at the top. If we click on more options, we can reduce the number of colors and increase the color tolerance, which should help using the magic wand tool. But we shouldn't need that for this. Seeing as it's simple and there's no gradients, we should be able to just click on patches of color with the magic wand tool and make things look pretty. We also have a crop tool up at the top here. If you click on that, you can draw a rectangle around your image, but there's really not too much to crop away on this one. So you drag and release, and it'll crop it automatically after that. I'm going to go back here, try to remove some background. And again, I'm just going to use the wand and click on patches of color that I want to cut away. And again, I have to make decisions about what I want to keep and what I want to leave. But I think we can cut away something that resembles what we want. There we go. So again, that checkered pattern represents transparency. If I click apply and continue, I think that actually looks pretty good. So you actually get to pick if you want the left or the right. On the right side, you'd actually print and then cut, but we're using a cutting machine, so let's go ahead and use the cut image, upload, and there you go. I think that looks pretty good. We'll have a look at the less good image next. Okay, so now it's time to look at something a little more complex. This is my fourth time trying to record this part of the video, and the issue I'm having is that I'm getting audio desync. And that's probably because my recording software is cloud-based, as is Cricut Design Space. So this is a good time to remind you that if you have poor or spotty internet, or if you're trying to do multiple things over the internet at once, like downloading, uploading, or streaming while you're using Cricut Design Space, you're probably going to notice some performance issues. So with that said, we'll go ahead and upload our complex image. Okay, so you can see there's a bit more going on in this image. There's some fog, there's some glare, there's some gradients, there's some lighting, and all that is going to make for a pretty good challenge as far as making something that we can use on the canvas. So we're turning this into a shape as best we can. And the first thing we need to do is decide what kind of image it is. And you can go ahead and call it a simple image, and it's going to suck a lot of the colors out. And maybe that'd be helpful, but their instructions say to describe the image as best you can because it makes the next steps work better. So go ahead, choose complex, and continue. Okay, so now to carve this up, my first instinct is to crop out as much as I can. There we go. We'll go back and try to pull a shape out of there. So first we'll look at the wand. We'll go ahead and click on some things outside of the car, try to remove the extra. And you can see as I do, it's not nearly as effective as it was with the first image. One thing you can do to improve that is to go to more options at the bottom here and improve the color tolerance. So if I were to set it as something like 50 instead of 16, you see we take away a lot more colors. Now that time we took away too much, so I'm going to hit undo, and I'll set the color tolerance to something in between, to something like 30. And that does a better job. So it's just going to be a matter of trial and error to figure out what works best depending on what you're trying to do with your image. Something else we can do is reduce the colors. There's probably still over 100 colors in this image. And the highest option we have available is 16. So when I do that, you can see a lot of the color was pulled out again. And that might make the wand a little bit more effective because the edges become sharper. We also have an erase tool. You click on that and just treat it like a paint tool. You can see my cursor turn into a circle and it removes everything in its path. There is a brush size as well. If you want to increase that, do a little bit more damage at once. Now, if you were to accidentally do something like that and mess up, that's where the restore tool comes in. You click on that and start drawing over your mistakes. You can see it brings the image back. That also has a brush size. Easy enough. So I'll try to do a little bit more work with the wand. And see where we wind up. That kind of looks like a thing. I think you'll see if I had a bit more experience, practice, a steady hand, patience, I could probably turn that into something usable. But for right now, we'll just go ahead and select it and upload. And as you can see, you can kind of make out what we're trying to do there. Nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and add the images to the project now. So if I select an image, you see it appears in the lower right. You could add multiple images at once if you like. I'm just going to do the one. And click Add to Canvas. There you go. It's a little bit large, but we can resize it. And that is how you add an image to your project. I'm going to finish this video up talking about the layers and color sync window over on the right side of the screen. So we've already discussed how you can select an object and use the arrange command to either send it forward or bring it back. But you can also use the layers window over here. So if I wanted to bring the square forward, we can just click and drag it up to the top. Now it covers all the other shapes. We can also click and drag it all the way to the bottom, where now it is under the circle and the triangle. We can also right-click on an object in the layer window, and you'll see we have a whole bunch of commands that you can see in other spots on the screen. But we also have a rename option up at the top. If you click on that, we can name our object. Everyone meet Bob the Square. Also, as you roll over each shape, you'll notice that there is an eye icon on the right side. Clicking on that will hide the object, and if you hide everything, you'll notice that the Make It button is grayed out, which I take to mean that you can't print or cut a shape that is hidden. I have not actually tested that out, though. Go ahead and bring everything back. If I were to select everything, you see we have some options that appear at the top. The first one is Group. So if I click on that guy, You see in the layer window, we now have a group, and all the shapes are a part of the group. The group basically treats everything in it as a single shape. So you see I can enlarge it and rotate it, just like we did when we were selecting all. However, now I can click away, click back on, and it's still all considered a part of one group. If you wanted to get things out of the group, you can go ahead and click and drag a shape out of the group. So now the square known as Bob is no longer a part of the group. You can also click the ungroup button, and you see the grouping goes away. Other options available at the top here are the duplicate button, which works just like it did before, where it basically does a copy and paste in one step. We also have the garbage can, which will delete whatever is selected. So for this next part, I'm just going to work with two shapes. So we've got our triangle and circle. I'm going to select them both. And I'm going to look at the bottom here. You see, again, we have a whole bunch of commands become available, and the first one is slice. I click on slice. Takes a second. But once it's done, you see we have a whole bunch of slice results. So basically everything that either was intersecting or not intersecting became its own shape. So if I start clicking and dragging, you'll see we still have all of both shapes. It's just that everything is in pieces. I'm going to undo that to get our circle and triangle back. I'm going to select them all again. This time I'm going to click on the combine command, and you see there's a bunch of stuff here. We're just going to look at one or two of them. First, we have weld, and what that does is turn both shapes into a single shape and calls it weld result. Looks kind of like a fish. I'm going to undo that. Select our shapes again. And this time I'm going to choose any one of the bottom four. So if I choose Unite, it works just like Weld, except we have access to the original shapes. And if I select one and move it, click on Unite again, you'll see we have a new shape, but it's still our circle and triangle. And you'll notice that they're both the same color now too, because they're now both part of the same color material. If I click on the combine command, you see we have the ability to undo the unite as well. To the right of combine, we have the attach command. And I click on that. You'll see it works pretty much like group, except it will put all of the selected items into the same material color. And the big difference is that when it's time to cut, all of the shapes will retain their positions. They won't all get squished together on the cutting mat. I'm going to undo that. To the right of attach, we have flatten. And all that does is put all the selected items into the same print then cut item. I'm going to undo that. The last option available at the bottom there is contour, and it's kind of a hard one to get selected. And what that does is it hides cuts within shapes. So what we're going to do is take a triangle out of Bob. There we go. If I drag this shape away, you'll notice we have the contour command available. When I click on that, again, we have the ability to hide the cuts inside the shape. So when I click hide all contours, X out, our triangle cut is gone. We still have our original triangle pieces though. So we're going to look now at the color sync option here. And all color sync does is show all of the objects by their material color. So this is a good place to start moving things around and organizing things for cutting. So if you wanted everything to be on the same material, color, you can just click and drag just like that. And now everything is on the same material color. So I believe you've got enough to get started designing. When you're all set to start cutting, you can go ahead and contact us for a one-on-one, and one of our staff members will help you get started with machines. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.